The arrival and subjugation. The day the Zarkan arrived was the day humanity's illusions of superiority shattered. Their ships darkened the skies over every major city on Earth, massive obsidian structures that defied physics and dwarfed our tallest skyscrapers. We thought we were prepared for anything the universe could throw at us. We were wrong. Dr. Elena Reeves stood on the roof of the Berkeley Physics Building, her hand shielding her eyes as she gazed up at the looming alien vessel. The wind whipped her dark hair around her face, carrying with it the acrid smell of smoke and fear. Beside her, her research partner, Dr. James Chen, gripped the railing, his knuckles white. "It's impossible," James whispered, his voice barely audible over the distant sounds of panic from the streets below. The energy required to move something that size through space, it shouldn't exist. Elena's mind raced, calculations and theories colliding as she tried to make sense of what she was seeing. "We're missing something, James. Something fundamental about the nature of space-time itself." Their scientific musings were cut short by the deafening roar of fighter jets shrieking across the sky. Humanity's first futile attempt at resistance had begun. Elena watched in horror as beams of sickly green light lanced out from the alien ship, swatting the jets from the air like insects. In less than an hour, it was over. The world's militaries lay in smoking ruins, their most advanced weapons rendered useless against the Zarkan's incomprehensible technology. The aliens' message, broadcast simultaneously in every language across the globe, was chilling in its simplicity. "Surrender or be eradicated. You have one planetary rotation to comply." Governments fell. Chaos reigned. And when the dust settled, humanity found itself under the boot of an alien race that viewed them as little more than animals. The Zarkan's rule was swift and brutal. They dismantled human infrastructure, replacing it with their own alien technology. Cities were transformed into sprawling labor camps, where humans toiled to extract Earth's resources for their new overlords. Advanced human technology was confiscated and destroyed. Scientific research was banned, except for fields that directly benefited the Zarkan. Elena and James, like many of Earth's brightest minds, were forced to work for the aliens. They were assigned to a Zarkan research facility, tasked with deciphering human scientific knowledge for their conquerors. It was soul-crushing work, made worse by the constant mockery of their alien supervisors. "Look at these primitive equations," Overseer Caltex would sneer, his multifaceted eyes glinting with cruel amusement. "It's a wonder you hairless apes manage to harness electricity, let alone reach your own moon." Months passed, and hope dwindled. But Elena refused to give up. Late at night, in the tiny apartment she shared with James, she would work on her own secret projects. Equations scrawled on scraps of paper, hidden in the lining of her mattress. Theories too dangerous to speak aloud. "We have to do something, James," she whispered one night, her eyes burning with determination. "We can't let this be the end of human progress." James looked at her, fear and resignation warring in his expression. "What can we do? They're too powerful, too advanced. We're nothing to them." Elena leaned in close, her voice dropping even lower. "What if I told you I found a flaw in their understanding of temporal mechanics, a blind spot we could exploit?" James's eyes widened. "Elena, that's if they catch you working on unauthorized physics. I know the risks," she cut him off. "But I can't stand by and watch our species fade into obscurity. We were meant for more than this." Before James could respond, a sharp knock at the door made them both freeze. Elena quickly shoved her notes under a loose floorboard as James went to answer. To their surprise, it wasn't a Zarkan patrol, but a human face they didn't recognize, a woman with hard eyes and a scar running down her cheek. "Dr. Reeves." "Dr. Chen," the woman asked, her voice low and urgent. "My name is Captain Sarah Donovan. I'm with the Resistance. We need your help." Elena and James exchanged a look of shock and hope. A resistance. It seemed impossible, yet here was proof standing before them. "How did you find us?" James asked, ushering the captain inside and quickly shutting the door. Sarah's lips quirked in a grim smile. We've been watching the Zarkan research facilities, identifying humans with the skills we need. You too, your work before the invasion was groundbreaking. We think you might be the key to fighting back. Elena felt a surge of excitement. We're listening. Sarah pulled out a small device, activating a holographic display that showed an underground facility. We've managed to salvage and hide some of our most advanced tech. We're building something we think can change everything. But we need your expertise to make it work. As the captain explained their audacious plan, Elena felt hope rekindling in her chest. It was dangerous, perhaps even impossible. But for the first time since the Zarkan arrived, she felt a spark of the old excitement that had driven her research. When do we start? Elena asked, her decision made. Sarah's expression was fierce. Now, pack only what you can carry. We leave in 10 minutes. As Elena and James hurriedly gathered their belongings and hidden research, they knew they were taking the first step on a journey that would either save humanity or doom them all. The Zarkan's laughter still echoed in their ears, but now it fueled their determination. They would show the aliens just how dangerous underestimating humanity could be. The resistance rises. The journey to the resistance base was a harrowing one. Elena, James, and Captain Donovan navigated through the ruins of what was once San Francisco, now a grotesque hybrid of human architecture and alien technology. They dodged Zarkan patrols, their hearts pounding with each close call. As they descended into an abandoned subway tunnel, Elena couldn't help but marvel at the ingenuity of the human spirit. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, people found ways to survive, to fight back. The resistance base was a marvel of human resourcefulness. Hidden deep beneath the city, it was a sprawling complex of repurposed subway tunnels and maintenance shafts. As they entered, Elena and James were struck by the buzz of activity. People moved with purpose, carrying scraps of technology, poring over maps, and tending to the wounded. "Welcome to Haven," Sarah said, a hint of pride in her voice. "It's not much, but it's the last free place on Earth." Over the next few weeks, Elena and James threw themselves into their work. They were introduced to a team of brilliant scientists and engineers, all working tirelessly to turn the tide against the Zarkan. Dr. Aisha Patel, a quantum physicist with a mischievous glint in her eye, showed them the crown jewel of the Resistance's efforts, a device they called the temporal displacement engine. "It's based on your work on quantum entanglement," Dr. Reeves, Aisha explained, her hands moving animatedly as she spoke. "We believe it's the key to creating localized temporal fields." Elena's mind raced with the implications. "You're talking about time manipulation?" That's beyond theoretical. The energy requirements alone would be astronomical." James nodded, his brow furrowed. "Not to mention the potential paradoxes. If we're not careful, we could unravel the fabric of reality itself." Aisha's grin widened. "That's where you two come in. We need your expertise to refine the technology, make it viable. If we can create even small pockets of altered time, it could give us the edge we need against the Zarkan." As they delved deeper into the project, Elena found herself working harder than she ever had before. The challenges were immense, but so was the potential reward. James, too, seemed reinvigorated by the work, his old passion for science rekindled. Months passed, and progress was made in fits and starts. There were setbacks, catastrophic equipment failures, near misses with Zarkan patrols, and the ever-present threat of discovery. But there were triumphs too. The first successful test of the temporal displacement engine was a moment Elena would never forget. In a heavily shielded chamber, they managed to create a bubble of slowed time around a small object. It lasted only seconds, but it was proof that their theories were sound. As word of their success spread through Haven, hope began to flourish. People who had been beaten down by months of oppression began to stand a little taller, to dream of a future free from alien rule. But the Zarkan were not idle. Reports from resistance cells around the world spoke of increased patrols, of new and terrifying weapons being deployed. The aliens seemed to sense that something was brewing among the humans they thought they had subjugated. It was during this tense time that Elena made a breakthrough. Late one night, poring over data from their latest test, she noticed an anomaly, a pattern in the quantum fluctuations that shouldn't have been there. "James," she called, her voice echoing through the empty lab. "James, come look at this." Her partner rushed over, bleary-eyed from lack of sleep. As Elena explained what she had found, his eyes widened with understanding. "If this is right," he whispered, "we could do more than just slow down time. We could potentially move through it." Elena nodded, her heart racing. "A true time machine. It's within our grasp." The next few weeks were a flurry of activity as they refined their theories and began adapting the temporal displacement engine. The entire resistance held its breath, knowing that they were on the cusp of something that could change everything. But as they neared completion, disaster struck. A Zarkin patrol stumbled upon one of Haven's supply caches. In the ensuing firefight, the aliens captured a resistance fighter. Under torture, he revealed the approximate location of the main base. The news hit Haven like a thunderbolt. They had mere hours before the Zarkin would be upon them. "We need more time," Elena pleaded with Sarah, who was coordinating the evacuation. "We're so close to a breakthrough. If we can just finish the calculations." Sarah's face was grim. "We don't have a choice, Elena. If the Tsar can find this place, find what we've been working on, it's all over. Not just for us, but for every human on Earth." As the resistance scrambled to evacuate, destroying what they couldn't carry, Elena made a desperate decision. She grabbed James by the arm, pulling him aside. "We have to stay," she said, her voice low and intense. "We have to finish this." James looked at her like she was insane. "Elena, that's suicide. If the Tsar can find us, then we'll die knowing we did everything we could." Elena cut him off. "James, think about it. If we can get the time machine working, none of this will have happened. We can go back, warn humanity about the invasion before it happens." For a long moment, James was silent. Then, slowly he nodded. "You're right. God help us. You're right." They told Sarah their plan. The captain argued, but in the end, she knew they were right. It was their only real shot at victory. As the last of the resistance fighters evacuated, Elena and James returned to the lab. They worked feverishly, the sound of distant explosions growing ever closer. Hours passed in a blur of equations and adjustments. They were so close, balancing on the knife edge between breakthrough and failure. And then, just as the first sounds of Zarkan weapons fire echoed through the tunnels leading to the lab, it happened. The temporal displacement engine hummed to life, a shimmering field of energy coalescing around it. "It's working," James shouted, his face lit by the eerie glow of the time field. "Elena, we did it." Elena's hands flew over the controls, inputting the temporal coordinates they had agreed upon. 5 years in the past, long enough to prepare Earth for the coming invasion. As the Zarkin burst into the lab, plasma weapons blazing, Elena and James shared one last look. In that moment, all the fear, all the doubt, all the pain of the past months fell away. They had done it. They had given humanity a chance. Hand in hand, they stepped into the swirling vortex of time, leaving behind a world of alien oppression and carrying with them the hopes of all humanity. The Zarkan's mocking laughter was cut short as the implications of what they were seeing sunk in. But it was too late. The humans they had underestimated, the species they had thought broken and subjugated, had just changed the rules of the game. As Elena and James vanished into the time stream, the lab exploded in a burst of temporal energy, erasing all traces of their work. The Zarkan were left staring at empty space, unaware that at that very moment, 5 years in the past, 2 determined scientists were about to rewrite history. The resistance had won its first major victory. The real war for Earth's future was about to begin. Echoes of a future past. The world spun in a kaleidoscope of light and sound as Elena and James hurtled through the time vortex. It felt like an eternity and an instant all at once. Then, with a thunderous crack, they materialized in a quiet alley in San Francisco, 5 years before the Zarkin invasion. Elena doubled over, fighting waves of nausea. James leaned against a wall, his face pale. Did it work?" he gasped. Elena fumbled for her phone, checking the date. Her eyes widened. "James, we did it. We're back. 5 years before the invasion." The gravity of their situation sank in. They were alone, in a world that had no idea of the catastrophe looming on the horizon. A world that would think them insane if they started talking about alien invasions and time travel. "We need a plan," James said, his scientific mind already racing. "We can't just go to the authorities. We need proof, and we need to start preparing Earth's defenses." Elena nodded, her determination returning. "First things first, we need to find our past selves. If anyone will believe us, it's us." The next few days were a surreal blur. They used what little money they had to rent a cheap motel room, then began the delicate task of making contact with their past selves without causing a paradox. It wasn't easy. Past Elena and James were skeptical, to say the least, but the future versions had come prepared. They'd brought with them detailed knowledge of cutting-edge physics that their past selves were only beginning to theorize about. In a secure lab at Berkeley, the 4 of them sat around a table, the air thick with tension. "So let me get this straight," Past Elena said, her voice laced with disbelief. "You're us from the future, where Earth has been invaded by aliens called the Zarkin, and you've come back in time to help us prevent it." Future James nodded. "I know it sounds insane, but look at the equations we've shown you. The theory behind the temporal displacement engine. You know it's beyond anything we've conceived of yet." Past James leaned forward, his eyes alight with scientific curiosity. "The implications of this, it's staggering. If we can prove this is real, it would revolutionize our understanding of physics." "We don't have time for proof," Future Elena said urgently. "The Zarkin will be here in 5 years. We need to start preparing now." Over the next few weeks, the 4 worked tirelessly to devise a plan. They couldn't go public with their knowledge. The panic and chaos that would ensue could be as devastating as the invasion itself. Instead, they decided to work from the shadows, subtly guiding Earth's scientific and military development. Using their future knowledge, they began publishing groundbreaking papers on advanced propulsion systems, energy weapons, and shield technology. The scientific community was set ablaze with these new ideas, and research into defensive technologies accelerated at an unprecedented pace. But it wasn't enough. They needed more resources, more influence. That's when Elena had an idea. "We need to create a private company," she said. "A tech company that can drive innovation and secretly prepare for the invasion." And so, Cronus Industries was born. With their advanced knowledge, Elena and James quickly turned it into one of the most innovative and successful tech companies in the world. They attracted the brightest minds, funneling resources into projects that would be crucial in the coming war. As the years passed, Earth's technology leaped forward. Cronus Industries unveiled breakthroughs in clean energy, artificial intelligence, and advanced materials. But behind closed doors, they were developing weapons and defenses that could stand up to the Zarkin. The strain of their secret mission took its toll. The 4 of them lived with the constant fear of discovery, of changing the timeline in unforeseen ways. Relationships outside their small circle became impossible to maintain. They were isolated by their knowledge of what was to come. 3 years into their preparations, disaster struck. Past James was killed in what appeared to be a random mugging. But Elena and Future James knew better. They had seen Zarkin infiltrators in their own time, aliens disguised as humans to gather intelligence. "They know," Future James said, his face ashen as they stood over the grave of his past self. "Somehow, They've detected our preparations. They're moving against us. The loss of past James was a devastating blow, but it also hardened their resolve. They redoubled their efforts, pushing Earth's technological development to its limits. As the 5-year mark approached, tensions on Earth were high. Strange signals had been detected at the edge of the solar system. Governments around the world were on high alert, though they didn't know the true nature of the threat they faced. In a secret facility deep beneath the Nevada desert, Alina, James, and their team made final preparations. They had done all they could to prepare Earth for the coming storm. Now, it was time to unveil their greatest creation. Ladies and gentlemen, Alina addressed the room full of world leaders and military officials. What you're about to see is the culmination of 5 years of work. A defense system that will protect Earth from threats beyond our imagination. With a nod to James, she activated the holographic display. A massive network of satellites and space stations appeared, surrounding the Earth like a protective cocoon. "We call it the Aegis Protocol," James explained. "A global defense grid capable of detecting, tracking, and neutralizing any threat, terrestrial or extraterrestrial." The room erupted in a mix of awe and skepticism. Questions flew fast and furious. How was this possible? Why hadn't they been informed earlier? What threat were they preparing for? As Alina fielded their questions, a young lieutenant burst into the room, his face pale. "Madam President," he gasped, "we're detecting multiple objects entering the solar system at impossible speeds. They're on a direct course for Earth." A hush fell over the room. Alina and James exchanged a look. This was it, the moment they had been preparing for all these years. Alina stepped forward, her voice steady despite the fear churning in her gut. "Mr. President, Madam President, distinguished leaders, the threat we've been preparing for is here. Earth is about to face its greatest challenge. But thanks to our preparations, we have a fighting chance." As alarms blared and the world's military scrambled to respond, Alina felt a glimmer of hope. They had changed the timeline. Earth was not the defenseless planet it had been in their original history. This time, humanity would not go quietly into the night. As the first Zarkan ships appeared in Earth's skies, they were met not with panic and disarray, but with a planet united and ready for battle. The war for Earth's future had begun anew, but this time, the playing field was far more even. Alina and James shared a determined look. Whatever happened next, they had given humanity a fighting chance. The Zarkan were about to learn a harsh lesson about underestimating the human spirit. The battle for Earth. The sky blazed with the fury of two civilizations locked in mortal combat. Zarkan warships, vast and ominous, filled the heavens, their hulls gleaming with an otherworldly sheen. But this time, Earth was not defenseless. The Aegis Protocol roared to life, a web of energy enveloping the planet in a protective cocoon. In the command center deep beneath the Nevada desert, Alina and James worked feverishly, coordinating Earth's defenses. Holographic displays showed the unfolding battle in real time, a dance of light and destruction playing out on a cosmic scale. Aegis holding at 87% capacity. A technician called out, "Zarkan forces unable to penetrate the shield." Alina allowed herself a small smile. Their preparations had paid off. The aliens who had once subjugated Earth with ease now found themselves facing a foe of equal technological might. But the Zarkan were not so easily deterred. Their ships regrouped, adopting new formations. Suddenly, a blinding flash lit up the command center screens. "They're using some kind of quantum torpedo," James shouted, his fingers flying over the controls. "It's creating micro-singularities in the shield matrix." Alina's mind raced. This was technology they hadn't encountered in their original timeline. The Zarkan had clearly been holding back in their first invasion. "Rear out power from the secondary grids," she ordered. "We need to stabilize the shield harmonics." As the battle raged in space, Earth's surface was not idle. The advanced weapon systems Alina and James had helped develop over the past 5 years sprang into action. Particle beam emitters concealed in mountain ranges lashed out at Zarkin ships that ventured too close. Swarms of AI-controlled drones harassed the alien fighters, exploiting weaknesses in their formations. In cities around the world, people huddled in shelters, watching the battle unfold on screens with a mixture of terror and hope. This was not the one-sided slaughter of the original timeline. Humanity was fighting back and holding its own. Hours turned into days. The Zarkin, expecting an easy conquest, found themselves mired in a grueling war of attrition. Their losses mounted, their strategies foiled time and again by humanity's unexpected resilience. But Earth was paying a heavy price as well. Although the Aegis shield protected the planet from the worst of the Zarkin's attacks, some weapons got through. Cities burned, millions were displaced, and the toll on human life grew with each passing hour. In a rare moment of quiet, Alina found James staring at a casualty report, his face haggard with exhaustion and guilt. "We did this, Alina," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "We changed the timeline, and now millions are dying in a war that never happened before." Alina placed a hand on his shoulder. "And billions more have a chance at freedom. A chance they never had in our original timeline. We gave humanity hope, James. We gave them a fighting chance." Before James could respond, alarms blared throughout the command center. On the main screen, a massive Zarkin vessel, easily twice the size of the others, had appeared at the edge of the solar system. "What is that?" Alina breathed, a chill running down her spine. A voice behind them answered, "That, Dr. Reeves, is the Zarkan World Destroyer." They turned to see General Li Chen, Earth's foremost military strategist, his face grim. "Our deep space probes have detected energy readings off the charts. Whatever weapons that thing is carrying, I don't think even the Aegis can stop it." The mood in the command center turned somber. After days of hard-fought battle, was this to be humanity's last stand? Alina's mind whirled. There had to be a solution, some way to turn the tables. Then, like a bolt of lightning, an idea struck her. "The temporal displacement engine," she said, turning to James. "We never dismantled it after our jump." James's eyes widened as he grasped her plan. "You want to use it as a weapon? Alina, the risks are less than the certainty of defeat if we do nothing," she finished. "If we can create a temporal field around that world destroyer, we could phase it out of our timeline entirely," James concluded, excitement building in his voice. General Li looked between them, confusion evident on his face. "I don't pretend to understand what you're talking about, but I'm assuming you have a plan." Alina nodded, her determination renewed. "We do, General, but we'll need to get close to that ship, dangerously close." What followed was a flurry of activity as Alina and James briefed Earth's leaders on their desperate plan. It was risky, borderline suicidal, but with the world destroyer approaching, they were out of options. A volunteer team was assembled, a mix of the brightest scientific minds and the most skilled pilots Earth had to offer. Their mission: to transport a hastily modified temporal displacement engine to the world destroyer and activate it, creating a bubble of altered time that would remove the threat. As the team made final preparations, Alina and James worked tirelessly to modify the engine. They had one shot at this. If they failed, Earth would fall. The mission launched under the cover of a massive counterattack. Every weapon in Earth's arsenal was brought to bear, creating a maelstrom of fire and destruction that the strike team used as cover to approach the world destroyer. In the command center, Alina and James watched with bated breath as the team's ship weaved through the chaos of battle. Zarkin fighters swarmed around them, energy beams lancing through space. "They're approaching the target," a technician called out. 30 seconds to optimal position. The tension in the room was palpable. Everything hinged on this moment. 20 seconds. 15. 10. Suddenly, a Zarkin cruiser appeared, blocking the team's path. There was no time to maneuver around it. "No," Alina whispered, her heart sinking. But then, In a move of incredible bravery, the human pilot drove straight for the cruiser. At the last possible second, they fired every weapon they had, blowing a hole straight through the alien ship. Their own craft was torn apart in the process, but the temporal displacement engine, protected in a reinforced pod, streaked through the debris field directly towards the world destroyer. Engine activated, James shouted, his voice filled with a mix of triumph and disbelief. On the screen, a sphere of shimmering energy blossomed around the world destroyer. The massive ship seemed to waver, like a mirage in the desert. Then, in a flash of light that momentarily outshone the sun, it vanished. For a moment, there was stunned silence in the command center. Then, as the realization of what had happened sunk in, cheers erupted. The world destroyer was gone, phased out of their timeline. As news of the world destroyer's defeat spread, the tide of the battle turned decisively. The remaining Zarkan forces, demoralized and outmatched, began to retreat. Elena and James embraced, tears of joy and exhaustion streaming down their faces. They had done it. They had changed the future, given humanity a chance not just to survive, but to triumph. As the last Zarkan ships fled Earth's solar system, the true magnitude of what had been accomplished began to sink in. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and emerged victorious. But the war had changed them, united them in ways they never could have imagined. And as the celebrations began, Elena and James knew that this was not the end, but a new beginning. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and they had proven themselves equal to any challenge the cosmos might throw at them. The future, once so dark and oppressive, now shone with limitless possibility. A new dawn. In the years following humanity's victory over the Zarkan, Earth underwent a transformation unlike anything in its history. The world that Elena and James had returned to save was gone, replaced by one forged in the crucible of interstellar war. The command center beneath the Nevada desert, once a secret installation, had become the heart of Earth's new unified government. Elena stood at the window of her office, gazing out at the sprawling complex that had grown around the original bunker. Holographic displays flickered with information from across the solar system and beyond. James entered, his steps quiet on the polished floor. "The council is ready for us," he said, a hint of excitement in his voice. "Today's the day." Elena nodded, taking a deep breath. "Hard to believe it's been 10 years since the invasion. Sometimes I still expect to wake up back in that resistance hideout." As they walked to the council chambers, both of them marveled at how far humanity had come. The technology developed to fight the Zarkan had revolutionized every aspect of human life. Clean energy was abundant, climate change had been reversed, and poverty was becoming a thing of the past. But perhaps the most significant change was in humanity itself. The invasion had united Earth in a way nothing else could have. Old rivalries and conflicts seemed petty in the face of what they had overcome together. The council chamber was a grand, circular room, its walls lined with screens showing real-time data from Earth's ever-expanding sphere of influence. Representatives from every nation on Earth sat around a large table, their faces a testament to the diversity of human experience. As Elena and James took their seats, the council president, Dr. Aisha Patel, called the meeting to order. "Dr. Reeves, Dr. Chen, thank you for joining us. Today, we stand on the brink of a new era for humanity. Thanks to your groundbreaking work, we are ready to take our first steps into the galactic community." On the main screen, an image appeared of a massive structure orbiting Earth. It was the culmination of a decade of work. Humanity's first faster-than-light spaceship, the HSS Unity. "The Unity is more than just a ship," Aisha continued. "It's a symbol of what we can achieve when we work together. With it, we will explore the stars, establish colonies on distant worlds, and perhaps most importantly, seek out other civilizations." There was a murmur of excitement around the table. The idea of meeting other alien races, hopefully more peaceful than the Zarkan, was both thrilling and terrifying. James leaned forward. The Unity's temporal shielding should prevent any unforeseen time distortions during FTL travel. We've also equipped it with our most advanced diplomatic and defensive systems. Whatever's out there, we'll be ready. Elena nodded in agreement. The ship also carries a database of human knowledge and culture. We want any civilizations we encounter to know who we are, where we come from, and that we come in peace, but that we're also capable of defending ourselves if necessary. The Council voted unanimously to launch the Unity on its maiden voyage. As the meeting adjourned, Elena and James found themselves alone in the chamber, lost in thought. "Do you ever wonder," James said softly, "about the timeline we left behind? The one where the Zarkin won?" Elena's face grew somber. "Often. I hope that by changing our past, we erased that future entirely. But if not, I hope our actions here have given that other Earth a fighting chance too." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent message. "Dr. Reeves, Dr. Chen, you need to see this," came the voice of their head of communications. Rushing to the control room, they found the staff in a state of controlled excitement. On the main screen was an image that made Elena's breath catch in her throat. It was a ship, clearly of alien design, but not Zarkin. It had entered the solar system and was broadcasting a message on all frequencies. "We're translating it now," the comms officer said, her fingers flying over the controls. As the translation came through, Elena and James exchanged a look of wonder. The message was one of greeting, of peaceful contact. The aliens called themselves the Nix-Eri, a species dedicated to exploration and the sharing of knowledge. "They say they've been watching us," the officer continued. "They saw our battle with the Zarkin. They're impressed. They want to establish diplomatic relations." The room erupted in cheers. Humanity's first peaceful contact with an alien race. It was a moment that would be remembered for generations to come. As the excitement died down and plans were made to respond to the Nix-Eri, Elena pulled James aside. "You know what this means, don't you?" she said, her eyes shining with unused tears. "Everything we went through, everything we sacrificed, it was worth it. We didn't just save humanity from subjugation. We've given our species a future among the stars." James nodded, his own emotions threatening to overwhelm him. "We did it, Elena. We really did it." As they stood there, watching the bustle of activity as Earth prepared to greet its new alien visitors, both Elena and James felt a profound sense of accomplishment. They had traveled through time, faced impossible odds, and emerged victorious. The future that stretched out before humanity was bright and full of possibility. There would be challenges, of course. The galaxy was vast and likely full of both wonders and dangers, but humanity had proven its resilience, its ingenuity, and its capacity for greatness. As the HSS Unity prepared for its historic launch and the Nix-Eri ship drew ever closer to Earth, Elena and James knew that this was just the beginning. Humanity's greatest adventure was about to unfold, and they had helped write the opening chapter. The Zarkin had once laughed at humanity, seeing them as nothing more than primitive apes. But humanity had the last laugh. They had not only survived, but thrived. And now, they were ready to take their place among the stars. In that moment, as they stood on the threshold of a new era, Elena and James felt the weight of their journey lift from their shoulders. They had changed the course of human history, and in doing so, they had unleashed the full potential of their species. The future was unwritten, but one thing was certain. Humanity would face it united, resilient, and unafraid. The stars were calling, and humanity was ready to answer.